I have always had an exaggerated fear of being completely submerged in water. It's not that I don't know how to swim or something similar. My father forced me to learn to swim. He said that I almost drowned when I was very little. But I have a strange fear because since I can remember every time I am underwater and look up to the surface, I see a woman leaning towards me, a smiling woman with bright golden hair and dark blue eyes. Even if I am in a bathtub, this woman appears to me, and it is something that came to be normal for me, although obviously I could never get used to it. I never discussed it with my dad when I was a child, but if I asked him about my mother, he was very reserved about the subject, and sometimes he even got angry with me when I insisted too much. But a few weeks ago I described this apparition to him. We were in the car and we almost crashed into a telephone booth. Obviously he knew something about it. I asked him again about my mother, and he still didn't tell me much except that she died when I was very young. And that he loved me. He admitted that his hair and eyes were like those of the woman I described to him as mine. I had to do a little research on my own, obtaining his name from my birth certificate and looking for any references that you will find, any news about a child who was saved from drowning, or anything. What I wanted was a photograph, something that I could compare with my guardian angel. Hidden in a local library, I found this. Mara Blanco, 28 years old. Lost her life by drowning last night after jumping a wire fence and escaping towards the pier near the psychiatric hospital. A funeral has been planned by the family for the 25th. Mara had been held for 6 months after being found innocent of attempted murder. Murder, arguing insanity. Her husband Daniel Blanco had acted quickly enough to save their son when he found her trying to drown him in the bathtub. At the end of the 19th century, in some European towns they continued to place small holes in the coffins, in which a long copper tube was placed that connected to a bell. This tube would allow people who had been mistakenly killed and buried alive to breathe. Believe it or not, a fairly common mistake at the time. In a certain cemetery in a town, the local gravedigger, when he heard a bell ring, went to see if it was the children trying to play a joke on him. Sometimes it was also just the wind, but this time occasion was neither of these two options. A voice coming from below begged to be unearthed. "Are you a Saraban?" asked the undertaker. "Yes," the voice answered. The worker said, "You were born on September 17, 1827. "Yes," September 17th responded. "The tombstone says that you died on February 20th. "I'm alive. It was a mistake. Dig me up, please." "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said while he started the bell and covered the tube with dirt. "It's August and it's not here. No Saraban is buried. Whatever you are, I'm sure you're not there by mistake, and I'm sure I'm not going to let you out." I work with great faith for a small textile factory. In reality my work is not very hard, but I am in charge of carrying and bringing small materials. I am not exactly a freight driver, so my work schedule is during the day. On one occasion the boss called me around 8 at night. We needed to cover an emergency order, and I had to go get the fabric to start production. Since it was urgent and since there wasn't much material I had to bring, I decided to use my vehicle. In particular, it was late, yes, but it was not the first time that I had driven at that time. I turned on the radio to entertain myself during the long journey, and so I drove for a long time until I reached that road, one of those that are deserted where there is no lighting and where at certain times there are almost no cars circulating. I had not realized before how big that road was, of the enormous deserted straight line along which I was traveling. I looked in the rearview mirror and I did not see any car for kilometers, or so it seemed. I looked again. Something seemed to come running a few hundred meters away from me, something that ran on all fours. I couldn't make out much more than a bunch of legs of some animal advancing at high speed towards me. I told myself that maybe it was a deer. A stupid idea, because there are no deer in this area, but at that moment I thought it was the most logical thing. At least that's what I wanted to believe. I looked again. Now this thing was running right behind my car. I was really scared. I got so scared, so I accelerated as much as the engine of my car would allow. To my surprise, that thing kept my pace, and that's when I knew that it wasn't an animal. It couldn't be something normal. Nothing could run at that speed. I stepped on the accelerator. In the background this time I was driving too fast. It even began to vibrate in a strange way, as if it were about to collapse. At that moment that thing was approaching through the door. I saw that it was already running at the height of the window of my car, right next to me, and feeling his gaze, I felt how he saw me and how he was running. I didn't want to turn around. I just accelerated. I don't know if it was seconds or minutes, but I felt like it was an eternity what that thing happened. Running next to me, watching me, and I know that he wanted me to turn around. He felt like he wanted me to look at him, perhaps realizing that I wouldn't. He looked ahead again and headed in front of my car, at an impossible speed, to disappear in the darkness of the road, beyond where they could reach him. Illuminate the headlights of my car. I have no idea what that thing was, but later I could see on the side of the road a lot of crosses, the kind that leave people in the place where too many people died, as if there had been a massive accident. Until that moment I had never paid attention to them. But I can't help but think that those crosses are perhaps a sign of what happens to drivers who dared to turn around and discover what that thing was on the road. A couple decided to spend the night to enjoy themselves away from home. They contacted their usual babysitter, a young student neighbor whom they usually left in charge of their two small children. When the children fell asleep, the babysitter went up to the master bedroom as always to watch a little television. Minutes later, the children's father's cell phone began to ring. Worried, he answered quickly, saying, the young nanny was speechless. I asked the father, "Is everything okay over there?" The young nanny then answered, "Yes, everything." "Well, sir, I was calling to ask you if I can put a sheet or a tablecloth on top of the statue of the angel that they have next to the window of your room. Makes me very nervous." The father was silent for a moment. The father tells the young nanny, listens, goes with the children, closes the door from the inside. "Let's go there. We don't have any statue of an angel in the house." The parents arrived minutes later, but they didn't find anyone. The nanny's body appeared floating a month later. Later, in a lake several kilometers from the house, the children were never found, and to this day they are still missing.